Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Mount Mindset. Now, here's a question for you. Have you had an amazing day? A day where everything went your way. All the traffic lights were green, the sun was shining, and everything you touched turned to gold. A day where you just felt that nothing was getting in your way. I'm sure you've had a day like that. Now, here's the question. Why is every day not like that? How is it that we can convince ourselves that we can get into states that aren't the best and put our mind in a place that doesn't get us the great results when we've done it time and time again, when we've had numbers of these great days before? And it's got me thinking about this because, as you may know by now, part of my life's work is figuring out the magic between what makes people extremely good at what they do. And whether that be something athletic, a sports challenge, whether it be business, whether it be investments, whatever it may be, you can measure it in many different ways. Might be you make the best paper aeroplane in the world and you find all the little parts that make that up. And you find the best way to fold the paper, the best, thickness of paper that just has the perfect glide to weight ratio. Whatever it may be, however you measure success, but you're very, very good at it. And it made me think about what is it that makes the very top people the best at what they do. And so far I've got two answers that, from seeing the best and studying the best and having glimpses of this myself and wondering how I was able to do it. And I think that it would be powerful to share these with you. And what I came up with is the question, what is the difference between the known, which is the science? So there's lots and lots of science that backs up how do you get great results? There's books and books and books littering everywhere about how you can achieve phenomenal results. And if you imagine that you are having a day where you go and you have a task that you need to complete and you want to go out and do it. And this is a task that you've done before. And in the last time that you've done this task, you were on top of the world, ready to go, raring to go. Couldn't wait to get out the door and do it. And then you go, you do it, you have an amazing time. And then it comes the same time the next again week. And it's the exact same task with the exact same thing and you being the exact same person. But yet you're procrastinating. You're taking 25 minutes to put your shoes on. You're dilly-dallying about. You're putting it off. How is it that you were able to do this last week and not able to recreate it this week? And it posed the important question is, there's no end of science in terms of the neurology, the processes in the brain, the different parts of the brain that create action and the chemical response and your access to memories and patterns. So there's no shortage of the science. And you would lead you to think that if you wanted a result and you followed the science, which was the pieces that said here, how to do this is to do the ABC, XYZ, then it would just be a case of following that. So why is it that people don't do it? Why do they not get the result? And I think that's an interesting question that we should explore. So it is what your brain knows, but you don't do. That's really what it is, because you know what to do, but you're not doing what you know. And what we're trying to establish here is there a way to get more of those great days? And I think the answer is yes. And it's going to be easier than you think, but in an area that you never thought about looking at. So let's dive into what that is. So first of all, we need to get a bit of context. So this thing that's between your ears is a super machine, like an unbelievably powerful computing processor of thoughts, neurology, memories, patterns, behaviors, recognizing all the different goings on that are in the world. And it is the hub which makes you make decisions. And one of the things that is important about what you know about this is there's certain responses that happen within your brain. So there's things like dopamine, which is the chemical that drives you. You seek to get more dopamine. That's why people enjoy the fabled doom scrolling on the phone, because they're getting hit after hit of something new. The novelty of something new gives you a little dopamine hit. If you're eating a piece of junk food that's so tasty and so good, it's giving you a little dopamine hit. If you're watching a program that's scaring you or keeping you on edge, or it's a nail biter, you're getting a dopamine hit. That's the response that's happening in your brain. So what you essentially are looking for is what are you doing to seek that out? And why do you feel motivated to take actions to get that dopamine response? Now, like anything, there's a way of getting it that's positive, which would be things like training, things like working out, things like reading a book, things like walking in nature, things like taking care of that task and getting a sense of achievement. And there's other things that are not as effective. So things like doom scrolling your phone, spending endless time in social media, watching junk TV, they all will give you the fix. Eating lots of junk food, they'll give you the same dopamine response, but they're two very, very different outcomes. So dopamine is a part of what's the wiring which makes you motivated to do things. The second thing is something called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is a weird thing because it's sort of your ability of your brain to rewire processes that you've got. So think of you tie your shoes, for instance, and you tie them in a certain way and you tie them in a certain order. And naturally, if left unattended, you would do it over and over again the same way. And the question is can you rewire that? And the answer is yes, but you need to have a motivation to do it. And when you want something more out of life, what you tend to look to do is to change the current habits to a new habit that improves your results. So when you want to improve your results, generally you need to up your game. And when you're upping your game, what you're looking for is a way that you can shift, adapt, or adjust what you're doing. So it's either doing something completely new, or it's modifying something that's existing that you do that you're looking to do in a better way to get a better result. So an example would be eating. So say you want to get in better shape, you've got a holiday coming up, you want to tighten up, you want to look good, maybe you want to put on a bit of muscle, and you decide, hey, look, I have this habit of eating and I want to improve how I'm eating. So maybe you want to eat better quality foods. Maybe you want to shift up to have a cleaner diet. Maybe you want to eat more so that you can put on more size for muscle. Maybe you want to eat a little bit less so that you want to reduce the portion sizes so that you speed up your metabolism so you can start burning body fat. And these are shifts that you can make. So you're still doing the same thing, which is eating, but you're adjusting the habit and the way in which you do it. And when you change that shift, you need to go through the process of adjusting your neuroplasticity, which is taking something that's fixed and hardened in you, which is the habit, and then softening that up and making that plasticity, that flexibility into creating something new. The downfall for people is that they don't normally give it long enough for this process to take place. So here's an example. You ever started something, you were hot out the doors, you're like, yes, and then you begin, and then somewhere along the line, something happens and you stop. And you go, I'll get back to it. And you never do. Well, what's happened is you began the process of change, but then you don't actually see it through, which is you don't give the process of time long enough for the neuroplasticity, which is where you can shape your new habit, where you can rewire your brain. So that's another part of what goes on inside your head. And if you want to shift that, you need, just keep in mind that you need to go long enough. Give yourself the chance to go long enough. Give yourself a chance to see the benefit, see the improvement. Just like if you were on a diet, if you were on a diet for one day, your body's not going to change. But if you go on a diet for 1 month, you're likely to see some decent changes. If you're doing the right diet, you're doing enough exercise, you're going to see it shift. And if you do it long enough, what happens is you hear a lot of the 21-day rule for to change a habit. And that's a good starting point. But the reality is that there's not a number of days to change your neuroplasticity. It's the process of allowing yourself to go into the resistance where you say, look, this is what I'm going to change it to. This is the structure I'm going to keep it in, and I'm going to do it for this length of time until I get the result, or until it becomes a new habit. And that is the power of the little part of your brain called neuroplasticity and its formation in creating new habits. So picking up where we started the podcast, the flow state, the peak performance, the juice, the fizz, the je ne sais quoi, the the perfect version of you. And what happens is you remember what it's like because it was that day that you were unstoppable. And that is something called, it's been named as the flow state. And the flow state is a way of describing where you're in a state of mind that you're completely aligned with what it is that you're doing. So there's harmony between your body and the actions it takes and how it feels, your emotional responses to what your environment is. So enjoyment, feeling good, feeling progression, feeling the benefit, and also your state of mind. So the process of enjoying it. And some of the signs of being in flow state are really cool. So timelessness. So imagine you're doing a long endurance event and you need to run 50 kilometers and you get into flow state and you believe, before you know it, the time has flew by and there's 5 hours of went past and you've covered a huge distance. You've maybe covered 30 or 40 kilometers. You've only got 10 left and you think, wow, that flew in. And it's the same way that you have that expression, time flies when you're having fun. Well, where that comes from is that when you're enjoying something, time changes. Or not time itself changes, but rather your perception of time changes. So imagine that you could get in a flow state and you had a task that was going to take a long time, but you entered into the correct state of mind to make that seem enjoyable, fun, easy, and it happened way quicker in your perceived reality than what you ever thought possible. Certainly worth a look, because if you've got these tasks or you want to take on something new and you change your motivation for what you're looking to do and you get a dopamine response that's positive, and then you combine that with neuroplasticity, which is I'm going to go long enough to change the habits to a new habit, and then you add that to the putting yourself in the right state, look at the difference that you'll feel, and that will remind you what it was like when you were in that state of flow before. So if it's that easy, what's really the barrier? Well, the barrier is that you've got this system, these systems that you have in your brain can work for you and can work against you. So here's the struggles that people will face. Here's the things that people will feel challenged with. And I'm sure you'll completely relate to this, which is, right, you remember how good it feels to crush a workout, smash it out of the park, get that run done. You're like, yes. But then that new program drops, the new series is on tonight. At the same time you were going to go the run, and you're now like, oh, you can get the same fix, that same dopamine hit, but you don't need to run. You don't need to go out in the cold. You don't need to get your trainers on. You can get snuggled up on the couch, feeling cozy and good, and maybe get some nibbles and snacks and eat away while you watch that program. Oh, it's so good because you're getting the dopamine from the goodies, the snacks. You're also getting the dopamine from the program. So now you have this draw to get the dopamine and you're motivated. And if you are in a habit of taking the path of least resistance, then you're going to pick the one that's not going to have the positive outcome. And it's having that, the way to get round this is to build resistance. So you want to be able to resist the urges for the things that don't have the positive outcome. You want to resist and be able to choose, give yourself enough time to choose that result, which gets you to make that call. The tougher call at that point in time is to get your trainers on, to get your running gear on, to get your workout gear on, whatever it is that you're doing, and go out and get it done. And one of the things that I always use is, right, if I don't do this, how will I feel tomorrow? How will I feel the day after? Like, for instance, even as this morning, I had a training session, and you might be following me along on Instagram, and I'm training at the Extreme Environments Laboratory at the local university, where they recreate the environment at altitude. And it makes it difficult because the amount of available air is massively reduced. The concentrate, the distribution of the air is the same, but there's just less of it. So your ability to exert yourself is greatly reduced because you're finding it difficult to pull in the same amount of oxygen. So it's a tough old workout, and you need to get down there, you need to get back. And this morning I just wasn't feeling it. I just didn't feel up for it, and I thought, could I reschedule it? Could I move it? And I was like, no. The resistance kicked in. No, you don't do that. What you do is you get it done. And the resistance is important because it'll keep you from taking the bad choice. It'll keep you from making the call that you'll regret later on. Because if you take the easy option, which is, you know, put it off, eat the junk, get your dopamine hits from places that are going to make you weaker, what happens is you're going to be in a position that your body's not going to be in the shape that it wants. Your mind's not going to be in the shape that it wants, and emotionally you're not going to be in the shape that you want, because you're on a downward spiral. And what you want to do is have the resistance that pushes you forward and says, look, I know it's hard. Like, I know that you don't feel up for it, but how about we go anyway? It's booked. Let's just go and get it done. And then you arrive and you show up and you get started, and you're like, okay. And your internal dialogue is like, okay, I'm here. Might as well get it done. And you go and you start, and then 5 minutes in, you're back to feeling great, because your body's used to moving, and it will follow. Your body will follow where your mind goes. And as you push yourself and build that resistance, you're going to get something. And that thing that you're going to get is the sense of accomplishment, and the sense of willpower, and the sense of being in control, and the sense of being able to make the right decision at the right time. And that's powerful, because if you can do that with the easy stuff, then you can do it with the hard stuff. And you can do it with the things that are going to make a big difference in your life. So these are the things that you want to start to institute. And if you notice yourself taking the easy path, just start building the resistance. Think about what you would do if you did do the thing that was hard and you felt really good about it. And if you felt really good about it, how would you feel at the end of it? Well, surely it's worth giving it a shot. Like, have a go. And then we know what to do, build a streak. Do it again and again and again. And at some point, you're never going to look back. Because whenever you need that resistance, it's there, because you're putting so many coins in the bank of your win column. Yeah, I didn't feel it and I still went. You know, I didn't feel up to it and I still did it. There was loads of things on, I still made it. These are the things that are going to make the difference. So that is why it's important that you should build resistance. Next one is your environment versus your willpower. And this is so subtle, so subtle. So Have you ever tried to do something in a place, like, have you ever tried to do a bit of work in an area of your house that you typically relax in, and you just find that you can't get into the zone? You can't get into the frame of mind to get busy. Well, that's because we respond to our environments. So in the place that's nice and calm, maybe somewhere where we relax, somewhere where we maybe feel sleepy, it's that environment's not conducive to you doing a workout there. So things that you could probably do there is meditate, yoga, stretching, going to sleep, reading a book, all great things to do there. Things that are probably not great there is opening up your laptop, trying to do some work, scattering your paper around, doing important tasks. It isn't there, because there's a place and an environment in which you do those important things, and your response to your environment. And a great one that I always go back to is, the gym. So I know what my body responds when I'm in the environment in the gym, because it knows what it's supposed to do, because it goes in and the gym's got a certain smell and it's got a particular look, and there's things that I identify and recognize. And this is why your environment is, it triggers off things in your brain, because our brain takes in information and it says, what's going on here? What does this most look like? And it will run the previous responses of what it is that you did last time you were there. So see if you've been in the gym 100 times and you walk into the gym again, guess what pattern's going to run? I work out here. So that's why you want to tie what it is that you're doing to the environments that you're in, because that means that you're putting yourself at an edge and advantage to doing it. And another thing where you can even amplify that further is, say for instance, you've got a work task to do and you need to focus for the next hour. Well, then get your phone out the way and put it out the way, or put the notifications off, or make a strict and hard rule that you're only using this for the particular things. There's no social media, no doom scrolling, no YouTube. Just get it out of the way so that you can focus exactly on what you're doing, because that thing will distract you more than you can believe. So taking it out of the way is giving yourself another feather in your cap. Another thing is which is more common today than ever. I mean, when I started, my exploration of this, it was always about trying to find the knowledge. So the knowledge you could get in books, there would be seminars, and before really social media kicked off, there was like YouTube videos was like a kid biting, his brother's finger. That was like all that sort of stuff. There was nothing really informative on YouTube as such. So there's now, with the world of technology, there's an information overload. You're literally swimming in information, and some of it's good, some of it's exceptional, some of it is not so good, and some of it's just downright wrong. So you can have information overload. And if I think back to what it was like when I started, there was something called course junkies. And course junkies were people that would just do course after course after course after course. And were learning all this knowledge, but weren't applying any of it. So it's important that when you do gain the knowledge, you don't want to get into analysis by paralysis, which is, I need more knowledge, I need more knowledge, I need more knowledge. I'm a great believer in get started, get rolling with an imperfect setup, because you'll be able to adapt as you go, because you'll get feedback from whatever it is that you're doing. If it needs tweaked, if it needs adjusted. And that is the greatest way. The greatest way to find out the perfect way to do it is by actually doing it. So get out there and get started. So here's another thing. Here's a question for you. When was the last time that you knew what you had to do, but you didn't do it? Have you ever asked yourself, why did I not do that? And I don't mean beat yourself up. I mean, actually analyze what happened. See, why did I pick the other thing? Why did I pick the easy option? What was going on there? Do an audit and go, hey, look, how, you remember neuroplasticity? How can I shift this thought or this pattern or this behavior, and then maneuver it into a new pattern that's going to get me a better result? Because if you keep the outcome that you want in mind, then you're going to head towards the result that you want. So it's powerful to, it's a powerful way to find yourself actually starting to analyze what you're doing. And if you can start to look at yourself and change the way that you're approaching things, and then keep tweaking them and improving them, that's where you're going to get a lot of the juice. That's where you're going to get a lot of the results. Okay, so what's the stuff that you can do? Right, here's what I would suggest doing is don't try and remold everything that you're doing. Start with something small. The very first thing that I would do is wake up and go to sleep at the same time every day. So there's some people out there that don't need to sleep a lot. There's some people that need to get a lot of sleep. And there's other people that sort of just, go with the flow. One of the greatest things that you can do is get in a rhythm. And what I would do is get your sleep pattern dialed in. Now, you don't need to get up at 4:30 a.m. If you can and you want to, great. But the reality is it's more about what you do when you get up rather than getting up at a particular time. So if you get up at 4:30 and you do absolutely nothing, it's completely pointless getting up at 4:30. If you're getting up at 4:30 and you decide that you're going to use the 3-hour window that you've got where no one contacts you to then get a lot of things done, listen to an audible book, get an informative podcast on, do a block of writing, do a block of strategy, whatever it is that's your thing, and you want to be undisturbed and to be able to do it, then that is the way to take advantage of the early morning. Because the beauty of the early morning is you can actually do the things that you want to do. I'm a big fan of visualizing first thing in the morning. So visualizing things like, what would be a really good day today? What do I need to get done today? What result would I like to get by the end of the week? What can I change and adjust and adapt to get that result? What would the perfect week look like? If I went to the end of the week and I had the most amazing week, how would I feel? So these are things that you can do where you visualize into the week, into later on in the day, where you're imagining what the perfect life would look like, the perfect result, the perfect outcome for you. And that way you're not distracted by other things. You're not getting up and just being reactive. You actually have a plan of what you want and how you want to get there. And that's the beauty of having your morning routine dialed in. The next thing is, when you are doing something that's important, it's going to shift the needle, it's going to move the needle, design your environment. So your environment's important. What I mean by that is, just like we touched on earlier, is put yourself in the prime spot to do it. So like, if you wanted to get a great workout and you had the choice between doing a workout in your garage or doing a workout in the gym, I would say the environment is stronger in the gym than it would be in your garage. Now, both will work, but in terms of your response to your environment, the gym will be a stronger one. So put yourself in the strongest environment that will get you the best result. So another thing is, don't wait for the perfect plan. Your plan's never going to be perfect. You're never going to be in perfect condition, and it's never going to be a perfect environment to start. So just start with it being imperfect and get rolling. And what you want to do is adjust as you go along. And the key thing about when you get started is being consistent in your effort. So consistently show up rather than trying to be perfect and inconsistent will never beat being imperfect, but being very consistent and the ability to adapt. So just begin, get in there, get started and get rolling with it, and then tweak and adjust as you go, because the best feedback that you're ever going to get is from the people and operators and clients, customers, whatever it is that you're involved in. They'll feed it back to you. Same with your diet. Start with your diet, start with your training, and if you're not losing weight or you're not getting the results, tweak it up, keep adapting and adjusting until you get the results that you want, because it's completely possible that you get there. It's just a matter of consistency in applying the effort. So mindset shift is probably the next one that I think is the greatest thing to do. Is I would give yourself, rather than seeing things as hurdles, I would make them like little fun challenges where you go like, oh, how could I get around this? The number one thing that I would say is the greatest factor to the 1% in the world getting amazing results and 99% of everyone else is that the internal dialogue that the 1% have. They ask better questions. How can I do this? If I did this, what would it look like? Who can I speak to that is good at this? How can I replicate what they're doing? Can I get in business with someone that's got experience that I don't have? How can I structure this? They're just constantly asking better questions, which will inevitably put their focus on what will get a better outcome. And that's why there's 1% in the world and there's 99% that just doom scroll, don't put in the effort, really inconsistent in their action, and don't get anywhere. So the power of being in the headspace where you're seeing things as you're asking better questions is the way to get there. It is the way and path that you can start to unlock that potential that's inside you. So here's a little story from me. I remember thinking when I started doing the accountability things, I read a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. It's a short book, it's concise, it's punchy, and it's to the point. The book basically emphasizes the power of building systems. So systems or habits will get you results, and people focus on goals rather than building the right habits. And the accountability section is where you actually measure what you're doing. So there's something that he has in the back of the book called the habit tracker. And when I started doing this, I thought I was way consistent, very consistent, good at what I did, and was just looking to get marginal improvements. And I listed, I think, 12 things that I did throughout the day that I would have said I was really good at. And I started filling in the habit tracker. And when I got to the end of the week, I was quite surprised by how inconsistent I actually was. It was a complete eye-opener. It was a little bit like my ego didn't want to admit that I was not as consistent as I thought I was. And I realised that was my ego talking rather than the truth. My belief was I was consistent, but the evidence that I wasn't as consistent as I thought I was. And that was really a bit of a dent to take, because I was like, oh, I don't like that. But it gave me a valuable bit of information, which was if you can monitor and check against what you think and what you believe you are versus what you actually are and what you actually do, you can get an ecology check. So are you, yes, you're doing that, or are you, no, you're not quite as good as you think? That's a really, really powerful thing to do. The other thing that it does is it points out where your weaknesses are. So see where you think that you're good, see where you're slipping off the path, see where you're not really getting the result that you intended. It's going to show you where that is, because like the reality is that you have the potential to do it. You 100% can do it, but your process and pattern and your habits are letting you down. So it's going to show you, it's going to identify where that weakness is, and you can then start to work on it, which is a great insight. So I would say that the way to get better results is to go out there and start to analyse what you're doing, and not for the sake of beating yourself up. And that's fine if you want to do that, but think of the intent to actually finding out how you can improve in a way that will get you massive change. There's no point in you trying to add something new into your repertoire when there's something in your existing repertoire that's not working optimally. Go and fix the things that are in your current structure and optimize them until they're working extremely well. Then start to add new things, because what you don't want to end up is just new shiny toy syndrome. Let me do this, let me do this, let me do this new. What you want to do is get good at what you're doing. So to recap what we've discussed, that's the difference. Why is science all known? Why do people not apply it? So what we've covered off is the power of environment. You need to be in the right environment. You need to be in the right headspace. You need to know how to apply that. You need to give yourself the habits long enough and to that neuroplasticity to take place so that you can rewire the new habits that you want to add and let the old habits fall away. You also have changing your motivations, so what drives you. So picking the good thing for the dopamine hit versus the bad thing for the dopamine hit. And then also the ability of getting into flow. So that ability for you to access the perfect state that you know that is within you and you know what you're capable of, and being able to access that more often, more of the time. So you take these things and put them together and then add in some framework and add in some consistency. You will be off to the races like nobody's business. One of the things that I do when I'm mentoring people is find out what their current structure's like, and then I'll overlay it with what they want to achieve. And I say, is this current structure going to be capable of getting the outcomes that they want? And ultimately the answer is always no, because if it was yes, I wouldn't be looking at it. So the fix is there. And when you start to build the framework, which is what do we need to change? What do we need to adapt? What do we need to adjust to get you to that outcome that you want? And it's as simple as that.